As we ended the show last night, Australia's top spy, ASIO's Director-General Mike Burgess, took to his feet to deliver the nation's annual threat assessment, his first such assessment since his appointment to the role. As you can see from its widespread coverage in the media today, his speech was a timely reminder of the threats our nation faces. Living in a genial country like Australia, where everyone's life seems an open book and where government is subjected to robust scrutiny, it's easy to think that we have no real enemies. Sadly, we do, and only those who are naive would think otherwise. There's Islamist fanaticism, the terror scourge that hates the way we live, and with its death to the infidel or death to the non-believer mindset, wants to kill all those who don't share their view of God. Then there's powers and would-be great powers, China for one, that fear our freedoms and covet our resources, our land, food and minerals, and that have an inherent desire to control the way smaller countries act. For 2 decades now, our security agencies have been monitoring the fanatics in our midst. So far, you've got to say they've been very effective in preventing the kinds of mass terrorism that countries like Britain, Spain and India have been subjected to. But vigilance has to be constant. Vigilance has to be constant. And ASIO says the Islamist threat appears to have plateaued. Their description, not mine, but it's worth noting the confirmation from the Director-General that they're now monitoring twice as many potential plots as a year ago. And let's not forget here also the dozens of Islamic State fighters still determined to get back home to Australia, and the 10 or so serious terrorists, convicted terrorists, in our prisons here already and due for release later this year. As revealed by the ASIO chief overnight, although no surprise to me, there's also the unnamed country, but I'm sure you can work out what country we're talking about, that's been caught out monitoring Australian citizens, placing sleeper cells in our midst and threatening and intimidating Australians in order to get information and adherence to their doctrine. Throw in right-wing extremists too, a growing issue, a very worrying issue here and of course overseas as well, and Australia faces a massive security challenge that's getting worse, not better. And you wouldn't know any of this listening to much of the evidence in a London courtroom overnight in the extradition hearing for Julian Assange. As Assange and his backers see things, the real villain is America, and people have a sacred right to know all the US government secrets, including the names of people in other countries who are helping America and its allies. The same people and their names that ASIO needs to get information from to keep us safe here at home. As we know more about the Assange case, it would appear that one of the people most interested in the WikiLeaks disclosures was the now dispatched al-Qaeda leader, Osama bin Laden. You have to just only imagine the horrors that would have befallen informers and agents whose names and details were exposed by WikiLeaks and then acted upon by al-Qaeda killers. Which is why, for the life of me, I can't understand why some people persist in seeing Assange as some kind of hero. He's not. And let's hope this trial results in his extradition, where he will then face the full weight of US law. So what needs to happen in order to keep our country as safe as we can reasonably make it? First, we need to recognise that not everyone is as benevolent as we might be, and that not all governments have the goodwill towards ours that we do. Second, we need to keep resourcing our intelligence and security agencies. When the coalition was first elected back in 2013, Labor's legacy was massive budget cuts to our security and intelligence agencies. Of course, this has now been remedied, but they don't just need money. Properly resourcing our agencies means giving them the legislative powers needed to do their job. And third, we need to ensure that the online world does not remain the virtually ungoverned space it currently is. None of us, of course, want to see freedom curtailed, yet we seem to shrink from restrictions on the internet that we take for granted elsewhere. For From the vicious bullying amongst children, the sexual exploitation of young people, tax evasion, person-to-person scams, and the latest, using social media to market illicit drugs. There's no doubt that Mike Burgess is a strong appointment, and with a cybersecurity background, he reflects the modern face of intelligence and security agencies. Sadly for him, it's a job with only an ever-increasing workload as the world gets smaller and more dangerous. For all our sakes, we wish him the very best.